Despite U.S. Supreme Court decisions like Citizens United versus the FEC, the framers of the Constitution did not think corporations should have the same rights as people. Nor does a functioning democracy allow elections to be bought by the highest bidder. Would you support an amendment to the U.S. Constitution affirming that corporations are not entitled to constitutional rights and that money is not protected speech under the First Amendment? In addition, what other legislative measures would you support to constrain the role of money in politics? Senator Brownsberger?
Thank you. Actually, I'm the outlier on this issue. I really don't oppose the Citizens United decision. I think much has been made of it, and it's very misguided, actually. I think it's, first of all, let's start with the idea that, yes, money in politics is a huge problem, and it didn't start in 2010. We've been worried about the quality of leadership in Congress, the corruption of Congress, the corruption of state legislators for decades, right? This isn't news. And so it didn't start there, and I'm the only candidate in this race who's actually taken a pledge not to accept PAC or lobbyist contributions. You have members of Congress taking hundreds of thousands of dollars of contributions from lobbyists in Wall Street, and that has a direct influence on them. And Citizens United in no way changes the rules about those direct contributions to members of Congress. You ought to take a look at how people raise their money and how they're saying they're going to raise their money, and think about what that means about where their loyalties are going to lie. So why does there's actually a huge downside in talking about changing Citizens United. What does Citizens United say? It pertains only, first of all, to that 60 days of pre-election activity. 365 days a year, corporations, unions, others are seeking to influence Congress and influence the thought process of the public. If we actually if in the name of changing what happens during those 60 days before an election, we actually change the Constitution to state corporations have no rights. Of course corporations are not people. Of course, that's common sense. Well, what does that practically mean legally? It means that the police could waltz into any office building owned by a corporation and do what they please because it's a corporate-owned property. It's so ironic that we're talking about abridging our constitutional rights at a time when we're afraid about government surveillance. And think about what it means to corporations like Planned Parenthood, the Sierra Club, Common Cause, the New York Times, and Fox News to say that they have no rights whatsoever. Big mistake, folks. Big mistake, period.
In November 2012, voters in 91 Massachusetts cities and towns voted by an average of 3-to-1 margin for the Budget for All, a progressive platform for the federal budget that calls for stopping the cutbacks to social programs, investing in jobs to strengthen public education, health, transportation, and a move to a green economy, closing corporate tax breaks, and raising taxes on incomes over $250,000, and redirecting runaway military spending to job creation. The Congressional Progressive Caucus Back to Work budget voted on in March 2013 embodied these principles. If elected, will you vote for the CPC's budget next March and for budget principles that reflect the Budget for All? Senator Brownsberger?
Thank you. So I support the values of a progressive budget and would vote for it. But here's the interesting question, right? How come it hasn't happened already? How come it didn't happen in 2008, 2009 when we actually had control of the 2009, 2010 when we had control of all three branches of government? How come we didn't pass, how come we bailed out the big boys on Wall Street? Didn't make them pay the bills? How come we passed a weakened Dodd-Frank? How come the Wall Street big boys are still get the deduction for carried interest? You know, the Buffett rule where, you know, the secretary's paying 39%, but the hedge fund manager's only paying 15% on his profits. Why? Why is that still going on? Why do the oil companies still get those big subsidies? Why didn't we fix that in 2008, 2009, 2010? Well, it certainly wasn't Citizens United. It goes back to A, the larger politics of the country as a whole, and B, those lobbyist donations that have such a big influence on how the decision-making is going in Washington. So, 2012, we had Citizens United. A lot of money was thrown around not by corporations mostly, but by wealthy individuals. What happened? Obama got reelected. So think about the big picture. think practically and realistically about politics, and then come back to what is the downside of curtailing and shaving back on our First Amendment things. And I want you to think about me as a candidate who's really trying to talk as realistically as possible about the hard issues and not attacking sort of poster children like Citizens United.